Welcome back to the Exit Velo podcast. I'm your host, Adam Cohen, and on today's episode stars Dean Peterson, a former ninth-round pick for the Boston Red Sox who played in their organization from 1993 to 1997. Additionally, he was inducted into the Allegheny College Hall of Fame in 2008, has been assistant coach for Allegheny since 2019. Coach Pete, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing great, and thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It means a lot.
Yeah, awesome to have this opportunity. I appreciate you as a person and your passion for the game, and so excited to have a conversation with you.
Certainly. So that being said, let's begin. I want to start from the beginning of your career at Allegheny College, and my first question to you is, what made you want to play baseball at Allegheny College in your original college search?
Yeah, that's a great question. So two factors played into it for me. One was just the school. Allegheny's a great academic institution, so it was a place where I could go. I actually had aspirations to go to law school at some point. That didn't quite work out in the grand scheme, but originally I thought I wanted to go to law school, and Allegheny is awesome at getting people into that pathway. It's not far from home, so that was another convenience. But really, from a baseball standpoint, it came down to I wanted to win a national championship. I wanted to be at a place where I could at least be in a position to compete and play for a national title. I'd received a few, small scholarship offers, a few $100 basically, enough to pay for some books at some D1 schools. And I just knew in my heart that those schools were never going to have a chance to go to Omaha. That just was not in the cards for them. And God bless all of those schools because they do great things and they give people an opportunity to play and have outstanding coaches and are passionate about what they do. But there's just a reality that they can't stand up to the SEC and ACC and Pac-12 teams. So I wanted to win, and those were the factors for me.
Those are certainly some excellent factors. As a student at Allegheny College, I love the academics there, and it's so cool to see how that has transpired for several decades and how the school is so known for their academics, but also the fact that you saw that this was going to be a great team, and even forego going to a D1 school, which a lot of players dream of going to. So when you toured Allegheny, did you see that their team had a great chance of competing and going to perhaps a championship?
Yeah, I think for me, when I was on campus and I saw a game and definitely saw that I had some work to do to be able to compete at the level that the guys were at. But I think the coaching staff was just overwhelmingly compelling. Coach Crehan, who's legendary coach at Allegheny, and he was my coach, and had great success and really built up the program to a different level. He was just passionate about winning too. And that was what drove him. And so I think there were so many connecting points in that passion to win that I was just excited to be a part of it.
So remind me, did the teams that you played on, it was from, what was it, 89 to 93, right?
So 91 would have been the first baseball season that I played. 91, okay. 92, and 93. So yeah, some great players in 89 and 90 as well. Some awesome Gator legends, Tim Brustowitz and a few other guys, Rick Grimm, incredible Hall of Fame players. So
That's awesome. And did your team end up making the playoffs during those years that you played on them?
Yeah, my freshman year was rough. We had some talent, but just not enough pitching to get over the hump. And some other great teams in our conference were frankly, they were better than us. But it was a good experience for me as a freshman to get a little bit of playing time, go out there, get my butt kicked a little bit, and realize I had a lot more work to do to compete at that level. And so it motivated me. But my sophomore year and then junior year, we made the playoffs. So my junior year obviously was the highlight. We won the NCAC regular season. We had 17, 18, 19 game winning streak. I think at the time, we had the highest winning percentage in Allegheny history. I think our regular season record was 36-4. And I always tell all of our current guys, I'm like, yeah, you see all those losses, everyone but one of them is mine. I was the one responsible for blowing those games as the closer. So that was rough, but humbling. You always need to be humbled. So yeah, we ended up making the regional tournament that year. So great season, great players.
That's incredible. Well, I was just about to say that how even though you maybe lost a couple games, you also were such a huge benefactor to the team. You had the then record for NCAA history with 12 saves, which is incredible. So what was the feeling of like closing all those important games for Allegheny?
Yeah, I think that was special and unique. Holding records is nice, and again, I hope and I believe that we have some guys on our team that can break those records, and I look forward to that. I look forward to my name being second or third on some of those lists. That would be awesome. But Coach Crehan was a big part of that. Kind of being innovative at the time. College, especially at the Division III level, didn't use closers the way that we think of closers being used now. And so for me, it was a great opportunity to be on the forefront of something different. And I loved coming to the field each day and knowing, hey, I might pitch. I might be in a position to help our team win. So it was a lot like being a position player in that respect. And since that's what I had done for my entire life until I got to Allegheny, that was great transition for me mentally. I think it helped me embrace the role. And, to me, it was the ultimate expression of being a great teammate. And now, selfishly, it's nice to be the guy with the ball in your hand at the most important time of a game. And I love that. But there's also a team component of it to say, hey, we had some really good starting pitchers that got the ball to me, and to be able to make sure that they ended up with the W that they deserved meant a lot. And so it was an honor. It was exciting for sure. And lots of things I can go with. I like the pressure. I love guys who like pressure because that's what I liked and thrive in. So neat atmosphere. And it helped ultimately, I think that helped me become a pro, being in that position. I don't know if I would have stood out as a starting pitcher enough to really get any looks, but being in that unique position, people took notice because it leveraged my strengths and allowed me to shine.
Wow, that is truly, truly fascinating. And it's amazing because I know a lot of pitchers, they get to pitch like once every few days, or if they're even a long reliever, they might be pitching every other day, but you got to pitch in that high leverage situation, or you might be expecting to pitch in that high leverage situation every single time you guys went out and played, which is incredible. And how that helped shape your mentality to your professional career. That's also really amazing that your coach Crehan was able to put you in that spot and put you in that great role and helped you develop mentally and physically in order to have that great pro career.
Yeah, and I think that's what, great coaches do, is they put players in a position where their strengths can shine. So first, the coach identifies those strengths and helps the player identify and see those strengths, and then just finds ways to keep fanning into flame all of those passions and all the things that they do well, and then finding ways for them to succeed. That's one of the cornerstones, I think, of what Coach Crum has built, and we kind of, in an abbreviated way, had a chance to express this year, is that, we want to find ways and believe that everybody on our staff, on our roster, can help us win. And everyone has a role and has a skill set that makes us a better team. Otherwise, frankly, you wouldn't be on the team. So finding and identifying those strengths and then allowing guys to shine in them. That's just a special feeling for a coach.
Well, as someone who's behind the scenes with you guys a lot, I think you guys have already done an excellent job of incorporating each and every player to the best of their abilities. And it has to feel good as a player, I'm sure you know, as a player and as a coach, of knowing your role, knowing when you'll be utilized, and just giving your team the best chance to win.
Yeah, I think that, that's something we'll build and we'll get better at. I heard one first-year head coach who I respect a lot talking last night about how he kind of took this approach of year one. I'm going to observe a lot. I'm going to infuse value where I can, but I'm not going to just topple the apple cart and throw out everything and say it's my way or the highway. But there's this gradual process to integrating the things that you see value in. And so I think for me this year, I spent a lot of time watching, seeing what the culture of Allegheny baseball is right now, not presuming that it's the same as when I played here or when I coached before. And now in what will be hopefully year two, pretty soon, we'll start to make some minor tweaks to adjust and really amplify that. I think that that's my greatest value as a coach, is being able to help our relief pitchers understand their role, understand how to prepare, and the mental game, right? I'm a huge mental game guy. There's nothing more important in my mind when you don't have your best stuff, when you don't feel very good, which statistically is 4 out of every 5 times you go out there on the bump. You've got to find a way to compete and overcome that day's limitations in your execution physically by being mentally strong. So excited to see that grow. And I think that we have a lot of resources, a lot of people that help our athletes be mentally stronger, not just in our coaching staff, but in the environment of our school. I don't think people think of it in those terms, but if I could actually go around to every professor and all the other folks that are associated with our school, they would start to see rather quickly how they help students build the mental game.
What's the old adage? Baseball is 90% half mental, from Yogi Berra.
Yeah, Yogi always had his great yogiisms, and it's 90% mental, and the other half is physical. So
that's what it is.
That's a great line, and I think that even though sports science and the physical preparation has exponentially grown in the game, and those things are super valuable. I mean, great strength and conditioning coaches as resources, weighted ball programs and biomechanical analysis for pitchers and hitters and all of these amazing tools that science has helped us discover. But in the end, it's our mind that activates the body. And if the mind is not thinking and processing things properly through the right grid of understanding, that physical execution is going to lack, even though we've really beaten our bodies up and prepared, with vigor. You've got to understand how to control and navigate emotions on a very individual level. I think initially, sports psychology and the mental game was very much just this generic think positive thoughts, visualize a good result, and apply that to everybody with this broad brush. But we're starting to see more and more that it's very personalized, just like a swing or a pitching mechanic. You have to have the right approach to each individual, because we're all different people.
The game of baseball has certainly evolved pretty much each and every year at this point, but it's nice to know that like biomechanics are helping baseball players improve even more, and the focus on the mental side of baseball, as we talked about, is just so important. So it's nice, although like some of these newfound corporations of baseball or maybe not be the best things to every single fan, but there are in a lot of ways very useful.
Yeah, I think we all have our opinions, and we're all entitled to those. And I think that the advancements in baseball are making baseball a better game because it forces people to see the game in a new way, and it adds a depth to it. And I think that this emphasis on the mental game is actually underpinning a mental health emphasis in sports that's growing. And I think that we all, as a society, could improve our mental health. That would be a good thing.
Exactly. On and off the field, mental health is super important, and that's a good trajectory for all sports and just us as society as well to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to get to your minor league career as well, and I first want to start out with how you felt when the Red Sox picked you in the 9th round of the '93 draft, and they called you. What emotions were running through your head during that time?
Yeah, I think that there were a lot of emotions, and then even many that I didn't even understand that I had at the time. I had to look back in retrospect and kind of flesh those out. But initially, obviously, you're excited. That's what I had poured my whole life into, as being a professional baseball player, and so many people have that dream. And so to get that call was special. I felt like that was a validation of all the sacrifice that I had made. And I tell my own sons, I'm like, you're going to miss a lot of stuff. When other people are going and having their pool parties and whatever it may be, you're going to be on a baseball field, or you're going to be in a weight room. You're going to be making sacrifices that other people just aren't prepared to make, because that's what it requires. If you're serious about being a professional athlete in any sport, or being the best of the best in whatever area it is that you aspire to be the best at, you're going to have to sacrifice things. That's just the nature of the beast. So I think the first and greatest feeling was, that sense of, yes, it's been worth it. All of the stuff that I gave up was worth it. I was surprised at the Red Sox. I'd never heard anything from the Red Sox scouting folks, while many other teams had contacted me and called and interviewed me, or came on campus and administered these psychological evaluation tests that they were doing at the time, and different things. I never heard anything from the Red Sox. Like the Cincinnati Reds, like their scout was like, felt like he called me every day, and I know it wasn't, really? But was just very engaged. And I'm like, I'm going to be a Red. I'm like, this guy loves me, and this is going to happen. And so a little bit of shock in the process too, and really, ultimately, what it was is the Red Sox were kind of looking for a particular profile of pitcher. And so I'm a taller guy, so they're looking for tall sinker slider guys who could keep the ball down in Fenway, because they knew that fly balls go out. And so, at once I got into the organization, understood the philosophy, then it started to make a little bit more sense to me. And then, in retrospect, it's been some years later, and even being back at Allegheny this year, and sharing the experience that our seniors had, that, their senior season came to an end that they just didn't expect. I've had a process after the fact, of not really ever having a chance to say goodbye to my teammates at Allegheny, but just, yep, I'm gone. I'm a professional baseball player now. And when you show up on campus and you're putting in your work, I won't be there. And so that was something that I didn't realize at the time would be a challenge, but some years later, I was like, yeah, wow, that was hard. And I never thought about it. So.
Well, I think you have done a really good job at describing some of these very underrated aspects of making it into professional baseball. All these sacrifices, like people, for example, let's say the average person, when they're done with school, they go home, they play video games, or they hang out with friends. A lot of people who are trying to go into professional baseball in the professional sports industry, they keep working, they keep grinding. They're staying at the field late every day, and all those sacrifices. It's good to hear that it is worth it, because so many young men and women and everyone in between are aspiring to become great sports players and make it in their respective fields. So it's really amazing to see that that their success, such as yourself, they can make it in these really difficult fields. And also the fact of how the recruiting process, like for example, I had no idea that teams would be calling potential draft picks every single day. Like that's insane, and that is so cool. And then only to realize, like, hey, like another team just drafted me out of the blue. So that I wonder how common that is, and how these recruiting processes are like for a lot more draft picks. So I'm really glad that you gave me and everyone who's watching this that insight.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a good point, and there's just a reality that in terms of professional sports, to be, so I never made it to the major leagues. I got to play at a level of professional baseball, a level, not the highest level, but a level. And so clearly, there's a percentage of people that make it as far as I did to be able to play for an affiliated team in the minor leagues. And then there's that next elite step that are the major league guys that have actually been there and done that. But it's developing a mindset of sacrifice that then translates into other things, right? So athletes who have that then can translate that to other careers. But the same mindset of being the very best can apply to people who want to be doctors or who want to be mortgage consultants, whatever. I think there's just something inherently good about being willing to sacrifice to be the best version of yourself in whatever your field, right? We need more people who want to be the best versions of themselves. And I think that sports has this amazing grasp of how to do that. And if more people in the quote unquote general population would embrace how sports minded people think and act, they would be surprised at the results.
Well, that's why I think it's so amazing for minor leaguers, and also you can look at even the college players that you coach. For example, the college players that you coach at Allegheny College, our school, a lot of those guys probably won't end up having a professional career, but just being on a sports team can help them, and the mentality of being on a sports team can help them wherever they end up. And if they do go to the professional level, that can also help them continue to develop.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well said.
And I'm guessing that you took all that mindset into the minor leagues, and I'm sure that helped you out throughout the way. So what were some of your favorite moments and highlights throughout your minor league career?
Oh boy. My minor league career was actually really difficult. Going backwards and being now all of a sudden learning this new process of what it means to be a professional. Like I'd kind of figured out how to be a college athlete. But now that is your professional life is a different animal. And at that time, I don't know how well they do this now, but the assimilation process of really like kind of instructing and giving you some guidance on how to be a professional just wasn't there. You just had to figure it out and muddle through it on your own, or hopefully connect with some more veteran guys who'd been around. I think from just the pure mindset standpoint, I got to say that my minor league career, that wore on my mindset a lot, because at the time, every new year meant a new coaching staff, a new pitching coach, and they would all have differing philosophies of how you're going to do it. So, literally, I was in the minor leagues for 5 years, and I changed my pitching mechanics every year. And so that was frustrating. And that's what I'm saying, that it grinded on my mindset, because I had developed this process of preparation. I had developed my system of things that I did to achieve success. And immediately, so, when I was at Allegheny, velocity increased over time, and obviously was at a number that at the time was good, and good enough to warrant, breaking that 90-mile-an-hour barrier was the holy grail. Now, frankly, if you're not 95 plus, you can pretty much pack your bags. But so I reached that level, and I had developed this split finger pitch that was, my best secondary pitch. And immediately I got to Florida day one, and the pitching coach is like, yeah, you're not throwing that because that'll hurt your arm. That's our philosophy as an organization. So I literally had to get through my first year of professional baseball throwing a fastball, because and like tinkering around on the side and hoping that I could pull off something that was a little bit slower in some version of a changeup, even though, it was like on the fly. And man, I got pounded in the New York Penn League. I mean, I was relentlessly beaten like a mule trying to navigate this process year one. And, so then year two, I got with a pitching coach who helped me develop a changeup that worked for me. Started to introduce the slider, and I obviously had the winner to start working on some of those pitches. And so, year two was a little bit better. But if you see my career, it doesn't, go look at baseballreference.com, and you see the stats, and it's like this up and down motion of, success, failure, success, failure. And frankly, I didn't deal with that very well. I was used to having success, and I thought that the results kind of dictated who I was as a person, and I wore those failures as my identity, rather than being able to see beyond that and say, no, I'm a good baseball player. I've worked hard, and I have the ability to do this. Or no, I'm actually more than a baseball player. I'm actually a human being, a person that has value outside of being able to play this game at a certain level. And so that took me till after baseball, and kind of having a spiritual awakening to have that understanding of who I am as a person and start to develop into that mindset. But sacrifice and hard work, those are from my parents. My dad's a steel worker. My mom worked in the auto industry on a factory line. And, when you're from Youngstown, Ohio, that's kind of what your family does. They're either coal miners, farmers, steel workers, or auto workers. That's just kind of what you do. and so, I think that part developed into me. And then, the experiencing failure at different levels then started to shape me. And then being able to just work hard and chase dreams, that was hardwired for sure. That was hardwired for sure. And I think that has probably had a better effect on all of the things that I've done after baseball than it did in the minor leagues. I wish I could have applied it better in the minor leagues. I wish I would have had the perspective and the refinement in that mindset to identify things and go do them. with excellence, but yet not connecting them to my identity as much. I think I probably would have navigated it a little bit better.
I think the general public or the people who are watching is to understand how difficult it is to make it in minor leagues. And I think you're doing an excellent job describing your career and just how difficult it is. I've seen your split finger firsthand, throwing it to your players. It is nasty. And just the Red Sox, who wanted to keep the ball down like they told you, they wanted to keep the ball down from going out of Fenway, and below split fingers and sinkers are excellent pitches. So to make you just get rid of that pitch and just change you as a person, change your identity as a ball player that you've known for your entire life, each and every year, the mental toll on that is ridiculous. And I know you said you wish you could have realized that a bit more during your minor league career, but it is just so difficult. And at the very end, as long as you take something for that and you incorporate in your life, and I think you've done that a really good job of that as well, then it seems to all have mattered and all have been worth it in the long run.
Yeah, and I think, hopefully if the people of my generation, I'm old enough to say that now, if we take our experience of what professional baseball and minor league baseball was like and then apply that, and I see, being in the coaching community, being back more immersed in it, I see a lot of amazing coaches who understand how difficult that was and have adapted an approach that is just so much more loving and supporting and engaging and genuinely player centric, like focused on building the relationship and really encouraging the players to be the best versions of themselves and not thinking, it's my way or the highway, and I'm going to put my stamp on you. Rather, I know that you already have an amazing stamp of talent and skills that I'm here just to help you refine that. I'm here to help you understand how you can make those strengths better and improve any weaknesses you have. And, they might never be strengths, but at least they can not be so debilitating that they cost us a ball game or, whatever the case may be.
This individual aspect of baseball has certainly grown over the years. I actually read Barry Zito's autobiography recently, and he was playing guitar in the dugouts during his career all the time, and people just were not accepting of that at first, just as simple as just playing guitar. And then you also mentioned the fact of your baseball athletic ability of the person that you are and just the pitches that you feel comfortable with. And I think we've seen this good trend of, okay, we're going to help refine your skills rather than just change it altogether.
Yeah, I think, that's probably something that I've had to grow in, and many other coaches probably as well. My first time at Allegheny, we kind of had drills, and I made most of the pitchers kind of throw almost the same way. Like, I wasn't hard line about it, but I certainly had some pretty strong thoughts on how you do things. And, we had, and even now, I mean, every team has standards, right? You have to have standards of excellence that you're pursuing together, but inside those standards, if you don't have the room to allow people to be who they are, you're probably not, in our case, you're not going out and recruiting the right people, right? Mm-hmm. You're not recruiting the kinds of people who will be able to be themselves, yet blend into the team and be great teammates. And so as long as people can do that, right, we're very happy to let individuals be individuals, goofy, fun loving, all those things are important to a team, right? You have to have, I know as a Yankee fan, we'll get into some tense conversation here, but right. You look at that 2004 Red Sox team that won the World Series that, they're a bunch of lovable goofballs, right? And just they talked collectively as a team about how for them, just being loose and, kind of being known as the goofballs helped their identity and helped kind of take some of the pressure off of them, because that was their collective personality. And, you have to identify how to blend all of those things into the right mix and right chemistry. And when it comes together, it, and it's exciting and awesome to be a part of. And when somebody is off doing their own thing and detracting from the team, it's easy to pick up on that too. And so, I think a lot of times you think, well, we're just going to get rid of that person. But that's where coaching and building the right environment within your team construct are critical, because obviously, there are some very talented baseball players who get misunderstood even at the professional level. And, you look at a guy like Trevor Bauer, right? For a long time, it was like, this dude is nuts. And he's still nuts, probably to many people, but he's intelligent and he's thinking through things, and he's just wired a different way, and that's okay. That's okay. You just have to find a way to blend that in. And if he were to become a distraction, which is what I'm assuming the Indians felt like he had become, before they moved him to the Reds, then you've got to understand that in your team culture. But I think now more than ever, people just want to be accepted for who they are, and that is not a bad thing. Right. Obviously, if you have a severe psychosis, then that's something that probably needs addressed. But being uniquely you, that's who you were created to be. Right. That's who the divine power, God, whoever you choose to identify that source as, we all were created uniquely and specifically. And that's a good thing. Embrace who you are.
That's very well said. It is really fascinating how these converging philosophies come together. Of how you mentioned the 2004 Red Sox, who they themselves have called them a band of idiots, even though they won the World Series. Look at the 2013 Red Sox as well. Just every one of them being a goofball, having this great facial hair. So Red Sox are a perfect example of it. And just team culture. You want all the each player to be unique, to show their personality, but at the same time, you have to hold them to that standard of excellence that you described, and how you have all the pitchers do certain types of drills. I'm sure all the hitters go through some types of drills as well. They, do the kind of a similar weight training program. So it is really fascinating how you have this kind of assimilation. At the same time, it's to an extent, an assimilation in the sense that, well, each one member of the team have to uphold the team values and represent their organization, at the same time, freedom to let them be themselves. That helps the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Great summary of the comments. If I would have just said that, we would have saved ourselves 5 minutes.
Oh, good. Yeah. I also want to get into a little bit more about your minor league career. A couple of some more fun questions. So, who was your favorite teammate or person in the minors, and who was your toughest out in the minors?
Yeah, I guess I probably should have answered some of those questions in the original one that you asked me about some, my some of the experiences and some of the better things that happened. I brought out the lowlights. So it's entertaining because I don't know why I always think of kind of some of the lowlights, but I was recruiting in Jamestown. So the Jamestown Jammers, their Perfect Game Summer Collegiate League team, they were Expos minor league affiliate in the New York Penn League at one point in time. So if you can envision their stadium, regulation field, 330, 400 and something to center field. And then another probably 50 yards beyond left center field is the Jamestown High School. And so one glorious night in July, I decided that I was feeling pretty good. Had good juice on the fastball. And so I was ripping fastballs by guys. And so I figured, this next guy that's coming up, he's going to get the same thing. He's going to get the gas, and it's game over. Throw a fastball. I hear crack. I hang my head. And I as a pitcher, there are just some of those ones, it's gone. And so I hung my head, had time to turn around after hanging my head and see the ball land on top of the roof of the school. So that guy was Vlad Guerrero.
What the heck?
So that was probably, I know that StatCast and some of these things project things at 500. It had to be close to 500. It was an unbelievable shot. He just crushed it. So that would be one of the lowlights. And so I always tell my own sons about entertaining stories like that. Got to play against Derek Jeter. I struck Derek Jeter out. Now Derek Jeter got 9 hits off of me out of 10, probably plate appearances, but I did strike Derek Jeter out. So, we'll stick with that one. I played with a great team in 95 in Trenton. If you look at that roster, just some littered with guys that played professionally. My manager, Ken Maka, was, major league manager for a few years. Al Nipper, who was our pitching coach, ended up being in the big leagues as a pitching coach. Nomar Garcia Parra is on that team. Jeff Suppan, Trot Nixon, Lou Merlone, Ron Mayhay, Ryan McGuire, Shane Bennett. Just unbelievable. Joe Hudson, all those guys made it to the big leagues, and just unbelievable team. And I'm probably forgetting a couple other guys on that team that made it. Not necessarily impactful major league careers, but at least we're up for a cup of coffee better than what I did. I almost threw a no hitter early in the season of 95. Ended up throwing a 1-hitter at home, and that was just a special moment. Merlone made a diving attempt at this ball up the middle. It went off his glove, and it was a hit. It was a hit. No doubt about it. So I'm not lamenting the fact that it was scored a hit, because it truly was. But Lou was distraught. Lou was my roommate the year before when we played in Sarasota together, and so we had developed a close relationship, and he was just like a mess after the game that he didn't get to that ball. So that was a highlight for sure. Just seeing some of the amazing players. I could go through a list. Jay Payton, Benny Agbiani, David Ortiz. I could go through a list of guys that I played against and with, and what a great honor that is. Even though I didn't ultimately measure up to the level that they were at, just to be on the field with them and to see them as they developed as players was an awesome experience. And I think probably the thing that I will take from my baseball experience the most is, so 97 was my last full year back in Trenton. Made it up to AAA for a little bit during that season, but had what would statistically be a successful season. It's end of July, early August. My shoulder starts feeling like garbage, and so just kind of sucked it up. Figured, it is what it is. Getting towards the end of the season, and so finally it gets to the point where I'm like, somebody's got to check this out. So they do the MRI. They see the tear in the labrum, and so our doctors are like, well, we can shut you down, and you can have the surgery right now, or you can wait till the end of the season, and it's probably not going to get any worse than what it is, we were in a playoff run, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to suck it up. I'm going to be there for my team. And we ended up making playoffs, didn't win the Eastern League. It was disappointing, but was what it was. And then when they went in to do the surgery, I did something to compensate my mechanics to overcome the pain, and ended up having a tear in the front and the back. And so it was just a little bit bigger of a mess. But that's what I just always hope that every part of me and my life reflects, is that I'm willing to make those sacrifices for my team. And I think that's undervalued in the game and in life, being able to do that. And so I appreciate and have great respect for all of the people in all walks of life who that's their mentality. I'll sacrifice for the good of the whole and for the good of other people. Those people earn my respect to the nth degree. And there are a lot of them.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing how throughout your minor league career, you mentioned the highs and lows. So like, for example, you got to face Vlad Guerrero, but gave it that 500-foot home run, which, happens. And he's, of course, a Hall of Famer. And that's so cool that you got to face, you faced Jared Jeter and you struck him out, but also you have it on hits. Like, it's amazing the highs and lows of a minor leaguer, or like how 97 was your last year, right?
Yep.
In Sarasota. Yeah. Like how you went out and you gave everything you had. I mean, you were pitching through pain, and I think that's a very underrated part of baseball, pitching through pain and just trying to get through the season. And you did what you felt was right and what you wanted to do to help the team. And then afterwards, that was that of your minor league career. So it's amazing how each step of the way you gave sacrifices, you were humble, and how you just want to do everything you can for your team, which is really an amazing quality.
Yeah, I wish I could say that it was all benevolent. I think that being in the minor leagues is hard, and I'm pretty candid about this. It's the most bizarre environment ever. Like, who comes up with a team concept like this? That essentially you're on a team and you're trying to win with your teammates, but at the same time, the guy to your right and to your left, you're competing to get to the next step. So you're competing against one another in the truest sense to get to where you all dream of being. But at the same time, you're trying to achieve a collective goal. And man, there were far too many times where I didn't have that approach. I think ultimately it cost me. It cost me the joy of some of my career of not embracing that ability to say, you know what, I don't have to depend on somebody else failing or to, see myself elevated. And if I would have understood that and embraced it before 1997, I think I would have been in a much better position.
Well, I think so far, or just really the entire podcast, you've done a great job of explaining how difficult and how crazy and insane the minor leaguers are. Hold on one second. I just got to plug my computer in before it dies. So I'll continue talking as I go to my charger. But there's this recent trend with the minors, a recent occurrence in the minor leagues, in that how they're being underpaid, and a lot of major league teams are releasing a lot of these minor leaguers as well. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I think it's disappointing anytime you see people lose jobs. Anytime you see somebody's dream potentially come to an end, hopefully those guys have an ability to catch on somewhere. But in the current climate with, independent leagues and everything contracting because of the virus, it's just a tough situation. And, I see it on the Twitter sphere. I see the angst of, people who do real jobs, right? People who drive a truck or plumbers or whatever, right? They've got to do difficult jobs and hard labor in challenging conditions. It's not playing a game. And so I understand because I've done those jobs too. So I understand that, it's easy to kind of dismiss minor leaguers and be like, yeah, whatever. You don't really know what real work is or how hard the real world is. But they're doing what I think everybody is desirous to do, right? No matter where you are or what your position or job title is, you have dreams and aspirations, and sometimes those dreams get buried under circumstances or difficulty or whatever. And I feel awful for anyone who has had dreams crushed unfairly or unjustly. That's probably the worst punishment I think a person can receive, and I think it's inhumane because I think sometimes people do that to other people, and that's a special kind of cruelty. But specifically to those minor leaguers, I think that you're never going to see the wages be equitable until the minor leaguers are part of the Major League Players Association union, or they have their own union where there's some sort of equivalency of representation. The most money I ever made was $1,100 a month over, the 5-6 month season. My first year I made $700 a month, and then you have to go and get a job. I understand, and I'm not one to say, well, that's how it was for me, so suck it up and deal with it. Hopefully it becomes better. Maybe I think we're starting to engage in a rethinking of the minor league system, of saying maybe we can pay a few guys more money and recognize that there's a different kind of sorting out, sifting through process than what the traditional minor league system has been. And I don't think that necessarily means we have to eliminate all the opportunities for people, because guys develop at different stages. I mean, you see guys 24, 25, 26 who all of a sudden, as pitchers make a big velo jump, or, as hitters, something just clicks physically and they just start mashing the ball. And if they don't have opportunities to do that, that's going to limit the ultimate end product. So maybe it's finding more opportunities in Korea. Maybe it's, expanding baseball in Italy and, throughout Europe in different parts, so that there's more of a global expansion rather than just viewing it as myopically American minor league baseball. Because I know a lot of people are like, the independent leagues will grow. Well, there's only so much saturation probably that you can assume on that as well. And so hopefully we're able to rethink the system, make college baseball better, make that product, selfishly as a Division III player and coach, it'd be great to tear down some of the barriers of thinking that Division III baseball is some, redheaded stepchild to Division I baseball. And granted, Allegheny College is not going to go out and beat, UCLA and TCU, and we would probably get thumped around by those teams. We're not at that level, but yet, it's a very, very good brand of baseball that's played at the Division III level. And I'm pretty sure if we threw Tree out there against those guys, we might have a shot. So I think that probably just is a good moment in history to hit the reset button, to have some good, honest, analytical evaluation of the system and say, how can we make it better? And hopefully some people who are in a position to make those decisions have the right voice and have the right wisdom to apply it, so that the game can grow and so that people are treated fairly and yet still exist in opportunity.
I think there is certainly a silver lining in a variety of different fields and factors during this virus. And I think one of them, at least in terms of baseball, is, rethinking these systems like the minor leagues, because, and it's sad to say that it took something of 1,000 minor leaguers being about around 1,000 minor leaguers being released from their jobs to have this discussion, or to see the growing impact of Korean baseball and the American players who go over there and are trying to reshape their careers. And that's what these discussions are coming from. But I think they are important. Hopefully from this pandemic that we start to see, like, okay, well, minor leaguers are people too. They're going after the same dream. And although they might not be, everyday people in the sense of plumbers or blue collar, white collar people, they still are, going after their aspirations, and they don't even get paid that much. So we got to rethink how these systems work, and it's important. And even at the NCAA level, like, a lot of D3 teams are right. They're not seen as highly as D1 teams, which is definitely understandable to an extent, but they're still legitimate ball players. You mentioned Tree, one of our finest ball players at Allegheny College, who throws 94 from the left-hand side. He's a very legitimate pitcher. So a lot of good talent still comes from D3, and a lot of good talent still comes from the minor leagues. And it's sad to say that they're an afterthought sometimes.
Yeah, and I'd actually be curious to hear, a little bit of your position and experience, knowing that you have a connection to, the Israeli national team and some other things, and seeing baseball on that international level. What would be potentially the value of growing the game globally by, sending some of these minor leaguers to play in a European league with other aspiring players from those areas? Does that then elevate the ability of the Israeli national team, who, they made the World Baseball Classic, and, definitely not bad baseball by any stretch of the imagination, but, does it just improve some of those teams that would be considered maybe in a second tier relative to, US and Latin American countries that play in the World Baseball Classic, to see a kind of a natural rising tide of just being around better players, right? Ultimately, that's what makes those Division I programs at the top level as good as they are. It's because you have 20 plus very, very good players versus, a Division III team where you might have a roster of 35 and you have 12, 13 really good players. So, ultimately your goal at every level is just to keep elevating the whole, the collective ability of the whole. So I think there's just some awesome things that we could explore as a baseball community that might make baseball on the global level better. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, the Korean baseball, that's not very good. It's blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not very bad either. It's not very bad either. But if you had maybe, a few more minor leaguers, or a few more American players, international players who viewed that as a good option, you might see that league really, become booming.
Well, I just, from personal experience and just following the KBO, the Korean Baseball Organization, online, seeing whatever I can from Twitter, and just seeing how players all over the world are dealing with this pandemic. I think we could very much see a lot more international baseball happening. For example, in the Israel Association of Baseball, like, a lot of high school kids probably would not end up at D3, but they do produce some players who are trying to go to the States and trying to play. One of my good friends there ended up playing for a JUCO in Michigan, which is excellent. And a couple of players that I played against are on the Israeli national team for the Olympics, which is amazing. So, even though if it's not maybe the highest tier of baseball, probably, for example, NCAA D3 is not as high as D1. KBO might not be as high as even AAA in the minors. They're still great organizations. And even if they are not as highly touted, they bring this amazing experience because they take you around the world in a different culture, which is always great. But they also still provide good baseball. And if you still want to come back and you have really good seasons over there, you can always go back to American baseball. You can always develop baseball in other countries. So there's really no harm from it. It only produces these amazing opportunities.
Yeah, as I'm thinking and I'm hearing you talk, what potentially could be the next trend in baseball, right? We didn't see the data analytics revolution and all the shifts, right? That's a recent construct of baseball. But what's happening in baseball in Korea that might become a new trend in the major leagues, 3, 4, 5 years from now? What's happening? What development piece is going on in Israel to elevate the quality of baseball player there that could be incorporated into what goes on here, right? To have this more global reach to the sport, which I think would be valuable, since those of us who love baseball and still consider baseball America's pastime, we want to see the game grow. And I think that those markets provide a great opportunity. Like if you had a European league, and I'm sure they do, and we just don't have the awareness of it. But you have more American players, more minor leaguers looking for opportunities who go there and then embrace it in such a way that, it's just elevating the collective. Right? I guarantee you that there would be people who went and played in Europe and loved it and stayed there. And then all of a sudden they become coaches in that environment. They take things that they've learned from here and there. You start to see people, Straley, right? Who plays in the KBO, Dan Straley, right? So I'm sure that you have all of this influence of what he learned from driveline baseball and all of those things that are now going to Korea. And then he's going to come back, in the off season and be like, hey, here's some of the cool things that I saw. And I think that, you hit the nail on the head, that there could be this really cool globalization and growth and exposure, that would help maybe heal some of the tensions that we all experience, not understanding people that are different than us, by creating a broad base, for people who are in player development, front office, people like yourself who are into, the broadcasting and some different things. Get those people into different cultures, get a variety of leagues around the world, where you're doing an internship in European baseball one year, Japanese baseball the next, and then you're going to school somewhere in America. Well, I mean, that's awesome. That now you've created this globalized exposure, and I think ultimately, probably some of the tensions that we experience are because we don't understand other people and other cultures, or we're afraid at some level of understanding them because they're different than what our normal experience is. And man, I always think that sports can be a healing source. So we need baseball to be and sports to be a healing source right now.
To kind of bring this back full circle a little bit, we talked about these converging philosophies, the standard of excellence versus the individuality, and even to take it one step further, the standard of excellence of baseball in America versus baseball in other countries. So, for example, in the KBO, you see umpires having the time of their life punching out someone when they strike out batters, which I would love to see more. You see batters pimping singles everywhere they go. Something that's not seen as too highly here in American baseball, or even in Israeli baseball. The 16U team, they travel to Prague and they wanted chip there, and they sang one of the Israeli national anthems after they won. Just all this emotional and really fascinating stuff, this cultural and globalized uniqueness that you don't get to see every day. And that very well could be the future of baseball, which would be very exciting and very unique, and that could be the way forward.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's awesome to see, and yeah, it definitely is entertaining to see the umpires elevate their game in terms of ringing people up. As a pitcher, you love that, right? You punch somebody out, you want to see the umpire get into it, be as excited as you are. I think there's a few ways to go with that. You brought up the story of the Israeli national team, and I think there's something that is a great sense of pride. Everybody has a great sense of pride to play for their country. And so I really appreciate the World Baseball Classic and baseball coming back to the Olympics. So that's exciting internationally for the game. And yeah, as you said, maybe it is adapting baseball on a global level, but also even here in America, right? There's always the debate over how you handle it. There's what was it? The let the kids play commercial, right? And so then people get heated, like you don't show the pitcher up or this, that, or the other thing. And then the other person says, well, the pitcher shouldn't have thrown such a bad pitch. And, it's a chicken or the egg argument. Again, to me, those things go back to where's the space that you can allow individuals to be who they are. Was it? Yeah. So it was last year. Louisville's playing Vanderbilt. Louisville pitcher is using some choice words, and he's kind of fired up after striking out some Vanderbilt guys. He's dominating them. He's dicing them up, and it would have been the end of Vanderbilt's run, and that got them fired up. And they came back and laid it on him, and they were letting him have it too. So even in the college game is clearly different than professionals, and there've just always been these unwritten rules, and kind of the way you do things as a professional isn't that little league Mickey Mouse college stuff. Yet I think we're emotional beings, and maybe people need to see that, and maybe that would be something that would elevate the popularity of baseball, is to actually just see the genuine emotion of it come out. And everybody's going to do that differently, right? If you're a pitcher, some pitchers need that emotion. They need to fuel it and stoke their own fire, and be some kind of ticked off to be effective. And others, they get ticked off, they're totally out of their game. They're a mess. Forget it. And so you're not just going to see this massive, everybody talking trash and bat flipping and all this other stuff. But I think it's just saying, let's be free and allow people to be who they are, understanding that everybody's going to be a little bit different. And when the emotion comes out, that's okay.
As I mentioned, just this virus has really shown all these amazing, it's really shown just this cultural and individual aspect that we need in the world, and we need in baseball, and we need in college ball too. So it is really fascinating that all of these kind of important debates that could also be the future of baseball are really coming to life right now, such as Louisville Villanova game. That was I saw clips of that. That was so fun, of how all right, one team got very emotional, the other one got emotional, and Villanova ended up winning that game. So it brings a whole nother side of baseball, which, baseball is such a traditionalist sport, and it's being very much revolutionized and very quickly, and that could be the future. And it could be very fun and unique to see how that all turns out.
Yeah. I mean, it's ultimately it's another side of the mental game. It's how do you handle that? How are you a person who understands who you are, and you're able to play within the construct of emotions that you need to be your best? Right. I remember playing college baseball and guys on our team being expert hecklers, and it would get under the skin of the other team. And you would see some people, would thrive. They would start playing better. They would be more focused. But then a few guys on that team would just fold, and they would be a mess because they were emotionally engaged at such a level that was detrimental to their performance. And so you can just see it. And I know that playing in Yankee Stadium, always very innocuous. The fans are very courteous, never, making any comments or anything that might get under the skin of the opposing players. So, it's just a part of the game, and, embracing it rather than rejecting it probably would be the best course of action.
If only every game was a blue and gold one-on-one at Allegheny, that our colors are blue and gold, or what is it? It's blue and gold, right? Just
Yep.
Making sure. And the players are just going at it the entire time. It's a different type of baseball, and it's very freeing, and we could see a lot more of that for sure. But that is all the time we have for today. Coach Pete, thank you so much for this excellent talk and for coming on the show. It's really nice to have you on.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. It was great talking to you. As I said, I appreciate you as a person. You're a passionate young man. I think you got a great future ahead of you, no matter where the path takes you, because you strike me as somebody who's willing to make the sacrifice and put in the hard work and do what's necessary to be the best. And that's gonna shine. That's gonna shine for the rest of your life. So I'm thankful for you, Adam. Thankful to be able to know you and have some time to talk.
Well, that means the world to me, coming from you, Coach Pete. Thank you so much. I appreciate you too. This is not goodbye. This is see you later. Until next time.
That's right.
The Exit Velo podcast.